I pray unto him, my shepherd, my father, our guiding sunlight. I pray unto him so that he may guide my path, the path bathed in light, the one where I might be righteous and judged by the goodness within my soul. I protect the people of our kingdom, as he guides my hand to do the work that others will not. I am an Inquisitor. I am the deliverer of the faith and the judgment of our Lord unto those who would commit the highest sin against him. Those who would dare trespass us should feel the wrath he bestows through my hands. Demons, heretics, and traitors, all alike. I am an Inquisitor, and these are the words I used to recite, and this is my tale. I am Inquisitor Viktor Morvell. I have been an Inquisitor for many years, serving under my lord and arch-paladin for nearly 20 years. I have exterminated vermin, heretics and monsters alike, all in the name of our good lord, the divine. Never have I hesitated against those who would do harm to the will of my lord and the peoples of the church. Foxton is my home, and has been. Deceit and treachery within this walled city is unforgivable, and repentance must be enacted. Or if the crime is too heretical, the gallows awaits those, where their necks will snap at the embrace of the rope. Though this tale has nothing to do with religion. In fact, it made me question my own thoughts. It is brutal and honest. I shall share my latest with you. My most recent inquisitorial investigation. One that has made me question things about myself and my moral code. The year of this investigation is the current year, 1104. It happened nearly a month ago, Trine the 7th of the month Lover's Lament. Fitting, really. I had arrived in a small village on the outskirts of Foxton called New Crest Hill. A quaint village. It wasn't even walled, just a bunch of houses and a tavern with guest rooms for travellers and folk like myself. I arrived in the twilight of the evening. The divine sun had just begun to set. I had been called out there by the local priest or pastor, who had run a small church for those who could not afford to reach the main cathedrals in the walled city of Foxton. The pastor running it was a man named Gregor. I entered his steeple, brushed my dirty boots against his floorboards, and approached him, and spoke. "Pastor Gregor?" I asked. "Yes, I have been inspecting you, Inquisitor," he said, before shaking my hand with a firm but gentle grip. "You sent word that required the attention of an Inquisitor. What seems to be the issue, Pastor?" I asked. I have not been informed on this task. I was only given minimal word by my Grand Inquisitor, Rykard, to arrive at this small village and await further instructions. Gregor looked at me with a slightly worried look upon his face, and he asked, "You weren't followed, were you, Inquisitor?" I laughed. "No, Pastor. Believe me, if anyone had followed me, my gloves would be a little bit more crimson in colour. There have been few attempts upon my life, from bandit tollways to cultist assassins." Gregor seemed relieved at this information and somewhat calmer, but I still noticed the worried expression upon his face and the sweat that began to pool upon his forehead. Good. This is a rather delicate matter, Inquisitor. This is regarding one of the citizens of the town. Well, two, technically, but the townsfolk are growing in concern for a woman and her child. None, and nor have I, ever seen her child. When it has been walked amongst the street, it is always wrapped and hidden away from us. And if she is to leave the house, the child sometimes remains within. There is no father that we know of. She also frequents the neighbouring forests not too far away from here." Gregor explained this information to me. His tone became, well, hushed and worrisome. I noticed that he became quieter at the sound of numerous footsteps as the people left their houses and headed towards the tavern not too far away. He leaned in closer and spoke in an almost whisper. "Follow her, Inquisitor. Follow her into the woods. I fear that child she has is nothing more than a demon." My eyes widened with the surprise. To jump at a conclusion without any proficient evidence was alarming. I believe in the faith as many of my other Inquisitors do, but I have my doubts when it comes to instantaneous labeling upon things as blasphemous or heretical. Are you sure? Have you had any of the signs of a demon? The changes in weather? Have the populace stopped been frequenting the church? Have people been, well, blasphemous in your eyes, Pastor? I asked, curious to what else he had to share. He spoke again. "Well, I have noticed only one or two coming less and less. The weather has been our usual average here in Foxton, the occasional rainy day, but normal nonetheless. The woman and her child have never visited the church since the child's birth. She never attended the baptism either, which is, as you know, uncalled for in these parts," he said to me, whilst his sweat increased upon his brow. He seemed nervous, which in turn made me nervous. I responded, "I see. Thank you, Pastor. I will start my investigation by speaking to some of the locals," I said to him, watching as his expression changed to a small smile as he extended the hand. Within his palm was a small symbol of the divine, a sun with a gentle smile upon it. Take this, Inquisitor. It will act as a ward, and, well, if you need clerical healing, I can do it from afar," Gregor said with a small smile, but it was still unnerving. I was completely unsure, and I decided to hold up my hand and refuse. "I cannot, Pastor, but thank you anyway. I have my own ward," I said as I patted my chest and revealed the inquisitorial symbol, the traditional glass-stained edge with a bloodied tear dripping down the middle. Gregor nodded, and he took my leave. Nearing 7 p.m, as all the small shops around the village began to close up, most of the villagers made their way to the local tavern, the Dawn Harvest. I too entered this tavern, thinking it was the best place to start my investigation. As I entered this lovely tavern, to be honest, the gentle strumming of a lute and the gentle humming of a flute created a small atmosphere of a warm and cozy feeling, the typical tavern that you might expect, especially within the winter months. I looked up and noticed the varied travellers, all from distant lands, some most likely mercenaries looking for a quick buck, the Kopreshi snakefolk and the Vosman and Dragonkin, and some of the half-giant Goliath Soundlanders, which is a rare sight to see these days. But the majority of the patrons were human citizens of Foxton. The barkeep, a large ginger man, smiled at me as I took my perch at his bar. I laid 4 gold coins at the table, and we understood one another. He leaned in against the bar and spoke to me. "So, what's an Inquisitor doing out here? Thought you lot dealt with things within the city, far away from Foxton. Nothing within these little parts." I smiled, as he was correct. Typically, yes. But the pastor of this town has brought me here, regarding a woman with child, who lives within this village. He looked at me quizzically. "Right. Is that so? Well, there's plenty of women here who are mothers. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific." Well, the pastor has only given me minimal details, not even a name. All I know is that the child that she has, she hides. I said this in a slightly quieter tone, trying my best not to draw too much attention from the locals and the mercenary bands. The barkeeper's expression soured as he spoke to me once more. Yeah, that would be Violetta. Poor lass. She's ill, I think. But not like physical ill. I think her mind's a bit, broken. I've seen her wander. Her eyes are like wide and dilated, like she's seen a ghost or something. I've never seen a kid, always hidden inside in the house of hers or wrapped up in bundles if she has to take it outside. They live together and secluded away from the rest of us in a small house. You'll see it when you cross the bridge. She used to be a brilliant potion brewer, in fact. She used to help me with some of my ales as well, but ever since she disappeared and came back with that child, not a peep. I witnessed his expressions change and his entire body language slump into a more sympathetic and reminiscing pose as he leant against the pine wood top. He clearly cared for this Violetta. Now I had a name. I was curious about her and this barkeep's relationship with her, so I asked. So, you and this Violetta, were you good friends? Did she frequent the church? Or perhaps you knew the father of her child? I prodded, wanting to know a varied amount of questions. He smiled at me for a moment and responded, Aye, she and I were close. I knew her since childhood. At one point, I did wonder if she and I would ever be together. But before I could ask, she vanished. Never returned to the village for at least 9 months, which is perfect, as you know, to have a child. I was so worried for her. And she even wouldn't allow me to see the child. I thought it was crazy. She never really attended the church either, hence why she didn't have the child baptized either. She seemed shameful to have it. I witnessed again how he looked down, almost hurt by this revelation and talk of truth. I placed another couple of coins on this counter, this time only 3 silver pieces, and I said, Pay for someone else's drink with this money, barkeep. Have you seen her recently? I paid him these coins to keep his attention, really. He responded, Last I saw of her was about 3 days ago. She ventured deep into the woods, blew me a kiss and vanished. I clutched it to my chest and... At this moment, I felt that there was nothing else I could learn. This barkeep was too in-depth with his personal feelings for this Violetta. I smiled at him and said, Thank you, friend, as I stood away from the bar. I decided to walk over to the small fireplace, where I witnessed the small logs and the larger logs that snapped and cracked with bursts of embers. There, sat at the fireplace, within an armchair, was a woman who seemed gentle and calm. She smiled at me and spoke to me. Greetings. I am Alicia. You're from the city, judging by your attire. And, judging by your equipment as well, you've been an Inquisitor. Are you here about Violetta? She asked. I was surprised to hear this. Did she already know my intentions? I am indeed. Pleasure to meet you. I am Viktor, Inquisitor Viktor. What do you know about her? I asked, curious to know what she had to say. Charmed, Viktor. And I know a small deal. She and I were once good friends. Ever since her child arrived, I have not spoken to her. But before you feel ill of her, or judge her like the pastor does, I pray that you listen to her side. I believe that she is a genuine soul. I fear that she has been hurt or made an accidental deal with some sort of being. If it is the case that she has borne a devil child, as the pastor has been claiming, I fear that she has, undergone a horrific experience. She said this with a calm demeanor, and I read no ill intent about her. And indeed, she was correct. I do tend to listen to both sides, unlike most Inquisitors. I suppose this is why Horace feels ill towards me at times, because I do not judge as harshly as he does, although he is a paladin and not an Inquisitor. I smiled at her. No worries, madam. I am keen to learn more. I was cut off by a scream. A woman's scream that managed to echo out through the entire village. The bar fell silent. I reached out for my large axe that was placed upon my back, that had been blessed by the paladins before I arrived in this village. I walked outside with purpose and readied my axe. I flourished the handle within my palms. The night had taken hold of the world. The wind had become still, and the sound of the gentle crickets chirred within the night. The scream came from the north of the town, oddly enough towards the forests. The barkeep rushed out after me and placed a hand upon my shoulder and looked at me with a horrified look. That was Violetta's voice. I know that voice, I do, Inquisitor. Stay here, I said, with authority. My investigation has officially begun, and tampering with it will be seen as a crime. Do you understand? This was the usual spiel I had to give before my mission began. Only, of course, if there was witnesses to the beginning of my investigation. Most of my work rarely involved others, but this case would be an exception. I trudged my way through the slightly cobbled streets, heading further out of town. I crossed the stone bridge that hovered over a murky river. The smell that was of swamp was pungent and ever so slightly revolting. At this moment I pulled up my collar, buttoned it, to protect my nose and mouth from breathing in anything toxic, or just smelling anything that was revolting. At this moment I arrived at what appeared to be Violetta's house, according to the testimonials of the barkeep anyway. The house was derelict, barren and covered in a sheet of moss and slight mould and mildew. I suppose this is every druid's dream. I attempted the door, and with the slightest touch, the door opened with ease. Inside, the fragrant smell of perfume and incense was rampant. Thank the divine I held my mask up high. There was a note upon the table that was slightly rotted. Thank the divine that I wasn't touching anything with bare hands. I picked up this note. It was written in a scrawly and scrambled text. It was also damp to the touch. I even felt it through my leather gloves. It read, "It won't stop. It's so hungry. And every time I feed it, it wants more. More and more and more. A never-ending thirst and hunger that I can never truly satisfy. I love this child, but the others won't. If they find this, they'll put me to the pyre, and they'll take my babe. No, I won't let them. I'll beat them at their own game." The journal fragment ended abruptly. I wondered what it meant. It was curious by what she was feeding. Did she mean the child or something else? I examined my surroundings. It seemed as if none of the possessions were taken, or left behind except for a shelf of books that were completely missing. There was a ring of dust indicating book-like shapes. The light and small fireplace was still on. It was cozy, but far too natural for me. As I examined further, I felt no sign of danger, which in my line of work always indicated far worse things were up ahead. I crept along through the single-floor house as the floorboards creaked beneath my black boots. There was no sign of the child either. Upon further examination, I read another fragment of a journal, one that was supposed to be burnt clearly, as it had been slightly toasted by the fireplace. I picked it up, and it read, "She has horns. Oh God, she has horns. I cannot hide her for much longer. The others will notice. They know not about my legs either, but they'll notice her horns, I know they will. I dare not hurt her and risk cutting off her horns. Ever. Not for the church. Not for anyone. This is my daughter. None shall harm her, and none shall harm you, my sweet darling. Not if the woods have anything to do about it. Horns, I immediately said to myself. She was hiding the child as it had been born with horns. My instant thought was that of the Kytonans, the desert neighbors from the south. But as I was thinking of these peoples, another scream. But this time, it seemed closer, in fact, nearer to the woods. I didn't question my actions at this moment. I took the note, and I placed it within the fire alongside the other journal fragment, and I destroyed the evidence. This, I felt, was the correct thing to do, as I felt that Alicia was correct. I was dealing with an innocent woman.